I don't think people fully understand the implied consent laws here in New Jersey and the charges that can be issued against you for violating that law. So I'm going to take a few minutes right now to break down everything you need to know about the implied consent law in New Jersey and how it affects you. Hi, I'm Daniel M. Rosenberg. I'm a criminal defense attorney and the founding partner of Rosenberg, Perry & Associates. And our office frequently handles DUI matters where implied consent is a factor in the case. And what I find is a lot of clients that we speak to are completely unaware of what the implied consent law is and how it affects them. So I'm going to start with the basics. What is implied consent? The formal definition is that implied consent means a person's actions infer permission, even though they have not expressly granted that permission. So in essence, what we're talking about is where someone doesn't give a verbal consent, but they have implied that consent through their actions. We're all in some way familiar with implied consent. A classic example being you go to the doctor, they need to take blood, they need to take your blood pressure. They roll up your sleeve. You don't formally tell them, I consent to you taking my blood, I consent to you taking my blood pressure, but your conduct implies the permission. In the DUI context, if an individual is suspected of driving while intoxicated, a law enforcement officer may require that individual to provide a breath sample. And that consent is implied consent. So now that you have a sense of what implied consent is, let's talk specifically about the implied consent law here in New Jersey. So the implied consent law here in New Jersey is set forth in statute, and it states that any person who operates a motor vehicle on any public road, street, or highway, or quasi-public area in this state shall be deemed to have given his consent to the taking of samples of his breath. Now it also talks about the law enforcement officer must have reasonable grounds to believe that such person has been operating a motor vehicle in violation of the provisions of New Jersey's DUI statute. So what does all that mean? That means that if you are operating a motor vehicle in the state of New Jersey on a public highway, and this means if you're a New Jersey driver or you're an out-of-state driver, the law states that if a law enforcement officer has reasonable grounds to believe that you're under the influence of alcohol, they can require you to provide a breath sample. Now they can't just randomly stop cars and ask them to provide a breath sample. They need to have reasonable grounds. There needs to be some indicia of intoxication. What's very interesting about this law is that you are required to provide a breath sample. You are not required to provide a blood sample. So now that you're aware of what the implied consent law is and how it applies to you, what are the consequences if you violate that law? So what happens if you fail to provide a breath sample? Well, there is a separate charge of refusal for refusing to provide a breath sample. That is a separate charge from DUI. So you can anticipate if someone fails to provide a breath sample, they're going to get two charges. One, DUI, two, refusal to submit to a breath sample. So if you're charged and convicted, what are the potential penalties that you could face from a refusal charge? A first offense refusal charge carries with it penalties very similar to a first offense DUI charge. By way of example, a first offense refusal charge carries with it a $300 to $500 fine, a $100 surcharge, $6 in assessments, $33 in court costs, 12 to 48 hours in the Intoxicated Drivers Resource Center, and then a suspension of your driving privileges until you have the interlock device installed on your motor vehicle, and then the interlock device is required to be on your motor vehicle for a period of anywhere from 9 to 15 months. So as a result, you're going to lose your license until you get the interlock device placed on your car. Then you're going to have that interlock device on your car for anywhere from 9 to 15 months. In addition to that, if you're convicted of the DUI, those penalties are consecutive to whatever you got on the DUI. These are just some of the most important facts that you need to know about the law, but clearly there's plenty more, and they all are very dependent on your specific facts and circumstances. So if you or someone you know has a question about implied consent, DUI, or refusal law, please feel free to contact our office. We'll take the time we need to assess your situation and give you candid and honest advice. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if there's a topic you'd like to learn more about, please contact my office or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. We are criminal trial attorneys. We have your back. That's what we do.